Welcome to Adrenaline Motorsports. I'm your host, Fred Blanchard. Our guest tonight is Steve Montrelli. From the Gasser Wars, from what I can tell, then you evolved into getting more into more of the higher performance engines using exotic fuels, if I'm not mistaken. I heard a little bit about that. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, we ran the Gassers, and we had when we quit running the Gasser, we had both records, and we had won the national races for the year. And I went from there, and I was very interested in building a funny car, and I had made a drawing of the car. A friend of mine, it was an artist, and it was just in red pencil. And I went out and learned or looked for different people to figure out how I could build this race car. And because of the Gasser, we used to be not sponsored, but we ran Mickey Thompson's tires on it. And he had, for the Gassers, whoever ran his tires, if you won a national event or one of the big events, you would get $500 from him, which would be like $5,000 today, maybe even more.
Well, you mentioned Mickey Thompson. That's an interesting comment. Where did he come into play in the motorsports? Did he come, was he kind of where he started, kind of like you, or how did that come about? I know that he had to climb the ladder like everybody else, I suppose. But I'll let you continue on what you were saying. I just was curious about Mickey Thompson.
Well, while we're right there, let's just say a little bit about Mickey Thompson. Mickey Thompson sold newspapers. That's what he did. And I guess he got interested in going racing just like I did. And I don't know exactly how he did it or anything, but he ended up building a complete speed shop. He made every kind of part you could think of for a race car.
Well, I think some of that history goes back to his days in the newspaper business. I suspect that from what I too was curious about this many years ago, and I think he might have been also involved in running of the presses that had something to do with the newspapers. I'm not sure of this, but I think that's part of his history. The good Lord has taken him now, so it's hard to get any information from that. But I know that he was quite a promoter in his own rights. He was a real go-getter from my understanding, and I like you, he came in with either sponsors or new people, and I'm sure that you can elaborate on some of that.
Well, we'll go into that. We'll finish the Gasser thing real quick, and then get into the first funny cars and go from there.
Sure.
Anyways, I got to know Mickey by going there because we were winning all the races and collecting the $500, and he'd look forward to see me come walking in his office on Monday morning. He knew we won the race. He sponsored some of the races. As far as he had a race at Fontana where there was 32 Gassers, and we won the race. And the Stonewoods and Cook and the K.S. Pittmans and the Big John Masmanians and the Finders and Burgoyce and Wade and lots of cars that were in the A-gas supercharged class. So when I was getting ready to build this first funny car, I went into Mickey and I asked Mickey if he would sponsor the car, and he said, well, I've known you for a couple of years now with this A-gas supercharged car, and yeah, he said, I says, well, I don't necessarily want any money, I just need parts. And he says, well, we have a warehouse full of parts that some have been returned, there's nothing wrong with them. He says, you can go in there and you can have anything you want from week to week to run your race car.
Sounds like keys to the candy store to me.
Yeah.
That was like a pretty good deal.
Right. So we went ahead and started building this car, which I have a lot of pictures of us building the car and modifying the body and putting the Chrysler in it and so forth and so on. And I got mag valve covers that said Mickey Thompson on it, and I got a Scott injector, which was very well known. He had 50 of them sitting there on a shelf. And I started selling those for him and making a tune-up and selling them to different guys. But that was a little later. Anyways, we finished the car and we ran it. It was a brand new era of the Pontiac, and it was a 1967 Firebird. And at that time, there was a lot of the altered wheelbase. We'll call them. They didn't call them funny cars then. They called them altered wheelbase at factory experimental.
I recall that.
And
my question is that so you were actually just building cars for yourself at that time and using parts that he offered to you, and basically that, or did you actually go to work for him? Is that what it was?
Well, not yet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Later on in the years, I did go to work for Mickey Thompson.
Oh, really? No kidding.
But this is how I got to know Mickey, and then I ran that car for, I don't know, a year and a half or so, and it had a lot of magazine articles on it, so forth and so on, and I got rid of that car, and then I met a guy from Las Vegas, and he was building a car which was called the Hellfire Corvette, and it was a 1969 Corvette fastback, and it was all painted up with the purples and flames and pearl, and it said Hellfire Corvette on the side of it, and it had Mickey Thompson on the sponsor, and we had Mickey Thompson tires on it, and we started running that car, and a gentleman named Mike Case, which built the chassis for it, which was down in our West Coast area there, down by the beach, which were Simpson's Gasoline Alley, and everybody was in there. There was chassis shops. Simpson was in there. There was a couple of dragsters in there, and Billy Williams and a few other people that were good friends of mine. Anyways, we took and run this car, and we'd go out to the racetrack. Well, at this point, I had got rid of my car, and I did go to work for Mickey Thompson, but I couldn't go to work for his race cars. He had 3 funny cars at the time. One was red, one was blue, and one was white.
Well, why don't we hold that thought for a moment, and I think we're going to go to a commercial break again, Steve, and we'll. I'd like to get the rest of that story, especially when you finally ended up with a job with a hero of motorsports.
Okay.